Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm parent coach, mother of four, and your host, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where you will learn that even for parenting experts like me, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, and that fabulous behavior and amazing relationships are right on the other side of that realization. If you're working your butt off to do right by your kid, honor yourself, and go beyond the BS around you, you are my person, and this podcast is for you. Full disclosure, I'm a sometimes potty talker, and we deal with the challenge of raising kids here. This podcast is for grown-ups, so stick your earbuds in and let's do this. Welcome into another episode of the podcast, everybody. And if you are watching me on the video, you can see that I am yet in a new location in this fabulous lake house, recording today's session today from the White Pine Room. And I'll tell you, this actually might be my favorite room in the house, even though it's not my room. It is got a queen size bed. Woo, look at that. If you're watching the video, a beautiful queen size bed. But the best thing about this room, well, first of all, it's kind of got its own bathroom, even though it's technically not an ensuite bathroom. So you don't have to pay for that luxury while you still get that luxury. But also it's got its own, I'm going to move my camera just for 1 second so you can see it's got its own little opening out onto the porch. It's got a sliding glass door that goes right out onto the back porch, and you can literally just lie in bed with your head on that pillow right there and just look out and look at the water and just watch the fabulous scenery go by right from the luxury of your own bed. It is like really beautiful. It's one of the brightest, sunniest rooms in the house. Obviously, you can shut the windows if you want to, but most of the people who stay in this room are just blown away by just that feeling of just like waking up at the lake every morning. So it's so magical. So if you're thinking about coming on the retreat, this room is available for one set of dates. So snag it up before it gets taken up. This is one of my ultimate favorite rooms in the house. And actually last year, at the end of the year, the girls who know they're going to come back next year, they kind of like go around and snoop around the house to see like, which room do I want to get next year? And this room is the one that gets snatched up every year. And it's always the one that people don't pick at first because they are a little bit weirded out by this bed that you see behind me. Is actually a water bed, believe it or not, but not like the big bag of water idea of a water bed like you've heard of, or used to remember from like the 80s or something like that. It's not like that. But when people see that on the description, they're like, I don't think so. And then almost always like year 2, this is the room they pick. So anyway, a really beautiful setting to talk about a really beautiful topic that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about at the retreat in October, which is the anatomy of peace. So this year, the theme of the retreat is connection. We're going to be talking about what that means in all different ways, our connection with ourselves, and then how that translates into our connection with the world around us, be that our partner, be that our children, be that with literally the environment that we're in or the circumstances that we're in. Connection, connection, connection. And obviously, as always, can't not talk about the Enneagram. So that'll be a part of it for sure. And we'll talk about specific communication tools. If you've ever taken my just 1 hour workshop, Words That Work, there's some concepts of what we're going to talk about today actually in that workshop. And then there's also some things that aren't part of the anatomy of peace that I talk about in that workshop, things about like communication tools, setting boundaries, how do we enforce boundaries with people, how do we communicate with people, like when there's conflict, what do we say, what do we do, how do we mitigate conflict and all that stuff. So if you've taken Words That Work, if you're a client of mine, you have access to it. It's in your bonus materials folder. So if you haven't listened to it, it's one of my most recommended sort of bonus materials for my clients because it just has so many concrete tools about like how to talk to people and how to actually like talk in ways that sort of promote closeness and connectivity, especially with our kids. So check that out if you're a client of mine. But even if you're not, if you come to the retreat, we're going to be talking about those things. And the other thing that we are going to be talking about, which is what I want to talk about today, is there's an amazing book out there called The Anatomy of Peace. It's put out by the Arbinger Institute. It's kind of a funky book. So I'm still debating, full disclosure, little peek behind the curtain. I'm still debating right now if I'm going to gift that book to everyone who comes to the retreat or not. So in the past, if there's been a specific, source that has been a big inspiration for the retreat, I've given that to people as gifts beforehand. So like one year it was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. One year it was The Alchemist. This year, if I were going to give a gift to people in advance, like a little surprise gift, maybe in August or early September, it would be the book, The Anatomy of Peace. But the truth is, even if you haven't read that book, the principles in it are something that we can work with and learn about no matter what. So I don't know. We'll find out. If you're coming on the retreat, you may or may not get that book, or you may or may not want to read it anyway. That's what we're going to talk about today, The Anatomy of Peace. It's a fabulous book. It was recommended to me originally when my son was in treatment. And I think the reason why, it's the content of the book is fabulous, and I think everyone should read it, whether or not you have kids, whether or not your kid's in treatment or whatever. But the book is told through allegory, and the allegory that they use, the storytelling that they use to illustrate the concepts that they're teaching in that book is a story about a family whose kid is going away to treatment. So that's makes it a really easy book to recommend to families who are going through treatment. But it really is totally beside the point whether or not you have someone in treatment who you're reading this and you're reading this book, or if you don't even have kids at all and you're reading this book. Like, all of us have conflict in our lives, and all of us are probably fomenting conflict in our lives without even realizing it. And that is what we're talking about today. And my confession for you today is, it's kind of a wacky confession. I'm going to be honest. It's really about my own personal work right now in this moment. Usually when I'm going through something like transformational, I don't really talk about it until I'm sort of like on the other side and I actually have enough perspective to say something salient about it, instead of like, life is hard, everything's a mess. That's not very useful to you. But this one is actually something I am dancing with and messing around with even right now. And it has to do with something that we learn about in The Anatomy of Peace. And what's really funny is, even though I've read The Anatomy of Peace about 1,000,000 times, I reread it again in preparation for the retreat. I did not connect the dots with what the work I'm doing right now and the contents of The Anatomy of Peace. But there's a concept in that book. They talk about seeing people as objects or people. Is the person in front of you, or the person you're interacting with, a human being truly in your heart? Like, is that how you are relating to them? Or are you relating to them like an object? And it's a really powerful concept. And if we're super honest with ourselves, even if you're the most sensitive person in the world, even if you are just wounded heart, super empath, most of us are responding and relating to the people in our world as if they were a cup or a piece of wood, or some sort of hurdle in our way, or something to get something from. We relate to people as objects. I realized like halfway through my example that if you're not watching the video, you can't see that I just picked up my water glass to show you it's an object. And the reason why I used that, this is my confession, like a couple weeks ago in therapy, I was talking about this moment that I'm at in my personal work, and I'm utilizing the Enneagram a lot right now for what I'm doing. And so we were talking about the different centers, the head, heart, and body center, and I was talking about how I really feel like right now where I need to go and what I need to get deeper in is the heart center. And the homework, quote unquote, that my practitioner gave me, and she picked up her coffee mug when she was talking about this, which is why I picked up my water glass just now when I was illustrating this point. She's like, your homework is to, as you go through your day, relate to people, as like living creatures. And most of us do not do that. And she picked up her coffee cup and she said, and she kind of banged on it with her knuckles. And she was like, this is the thing that this is how we relate to people almost all day long, every day. Even like, for example, my magical, beautiful husband, Michael, who is a 2, which means he has the world's biggest heart. And he's so selfless and he's so giving. 2 is called the helper and all of that stuff. Even he has learned through his own personal work that the way that the 2 relates to people is still as objects. They are vehicles in order to get that enable the 2 to get love. And so that's why they're so helpful. So I'm not going to go into all the weeds about how all the different 9 types relate to people as objects, but just trust me that it's really true. And for me, as a 1, I relate to people as objects in the sense that they either are getting in the way of me being a good person or they're vehicles to me being a good person. And the anatomy of peace goes into this specific concept of our sort of way of being toward the people in our lives in a much, much deeper way. And that's something that we're going to be working on in the retreat. So I thought I'd give you a brief overview around the anatomy of peace. And who knows, maybe you'll listen to this, and whether you're coming on the retreat or not, you might want to read the book or listen to the audiobook or whatever. So the real question that the book asks us, or the concepts in the anatomy of peace asks us, is what if the conflict in your life isn't really about the other person? It's about how you're seeing them. What if that were true? And you don't even need to answer the question like, do you agree with that? Or maybe you think, oh, that's not really a radical idea. I already know that the conflict in my life is about how I see the other person. Okay, cool. This isn't about agree or disagree, or do you know that already, or do you not know that? If that concept were true, not just were it true factually, like up here in your head, but if you really, really, really felt that, that's just the truth. Every conflict I'm in is actually about how I see the people I'm in conflict with. If that were true, how would it change your way of being? How would it change the way that you deal with conflict? Because what the book is arguing is that whether we succeed at resolving conflict depends entirely on our mindset. And mindset does not mean what you think it means here. And mindset isn't just how you think. It's literally the way you see yourself, the way you see others, and the way you see the world, and the boxes that we put ourselves in, the stories we tell, the conclusions we draw as a result of that way of seeing everything. So that's kind of the main premise of that book. It's a starting point. And then the story unfolds, and we start to talk about these different layers. And I mean, talk about a connection to the theme connections. When we are not warring in our hearts toward the people we're in conflict with, if we really see the other person as a human being and we have a heart at peace, all of a sudden things are completely different. We really see that other human being as a real person with hopes and dreams and doubts and fears and struggles. Whereas when we have that sort of obstacle, like you're getting in my way, like this kiddo doesn't clean up after themselves when they get home from school, they dump their book bag on the ground, they kick their shoes across the room, blah, 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 blah. This kid is an obstacle to the clean house, which is my objective. It's not a person. The child ceases to be a person. They just see them as obstacles that we have to get around or get over or change or eradicate or whatever. And there's no hope for resolving conflict when we feel that way. And the same thing could be true of that child who kicks their stuff on the ground and doesn't hang up their book bag and all that stuff. They could see us as obstacles to them having fun and relaxing after school. Like, all I want to do, I've just been at school all day. All I want to do is just be done and not have to perform, not have to be good, not have to like live up to any sort of standard. And my parent is the obstacle to me getting that thing that I need. So even right now, just start thinking like, which heart, a heart at war or a heart at peace, are you bringing to your most important connections right now? Could be with your kid, could be with a coworker, a friend, a relative, your partner. Think about who those people are, your most important connections, and which heart are you bringing to those connections. So this kind of idea of a heart at war and a heart at peace is another really interesting concept that the book goes into. This idea about, our warring hearts turning humans into obstacles, dehumanizing the people we love most. It's so crazy, but if we're honest with ourselves, that's what happens. And the next thing that happens is the self-justification that we construct around relating to people that way. Because I think in our heart of hearts, in our deeper selves, we know like it's really not cool to relate to your kid as an obstacle or your partner as an obstacle or whatever. So we have this whole mechanism in our minds of self-justification, which the book, the Anatomy of Peace talks about that. That's sort of like, what box are you in? What box have you put your put yourself in? Hello, talk about slowing down. I need to slow down while I'm talking about this book. What box have you put yourself in? And how does that affect your relationship, your mental health? And being able to recognize those boxes and actually work to kind of get outside of them to escape that, it's really so important in order to foster genuine connection with other people. So once again, we come back to that theme of connection. Most people are carrying boxes, or they're going to arrive at the retreat in boxes they don't even know that they're in. And I can tell you, here's another like mini confession referring to like where I'm at in my personal work right now. Like, I feel like that whole box thing, when we start to really go deep with our work, we realize that we're in like a Russian nesting doll box situation. Like, you break out of one box and you realize that now you're in another box, and then you break through that box and there's another box. It's just this like never ending churn, or like revelation, or peeling back to reveal more and more and more sort of justifications and rationalizations and worldviews that still are a container that you're in. So I can definitely say that I'm sort of grappling with that myself right now, and can be maddening. You can also feel like incredibly proud. And one of the concepts that I'm learning right now, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but one of the concepts that I'm learning right now with the Enneagram is this concept of sort of like evolution is like almost like octaves, like music octaves. Like, you start at do and you go through the whole re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and you get back to do. And so those patterns that we see ourselves in, that box that we keep putting ourselves in, like, it's so familiar. I mean, it's really the same box, but maybe an expanded version of itself. Those Russian nesting dolls come back into play here, where it's like, that box is the same shape. Like, if your Russian nesting doll is shaped like a little mama with a babushka or whatever, the one in the middle, the very tiny one at the very center, is going to be the same shape as the one that's all the way on the outside. They're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, expanding, expanding, expanding. But the shape is the same. So the shape of my box is all about it looks like perfection and right and wrong and good and bad and rationalization and black and white thinking and stuff like that. That's a shape of my box. And every time that I get back to do, I realize, like, gosh darn it, I'm in that flipping box again. But it's a bigger box this time. It's the next octave up. And now I go around the scale again and I get back to do. It's still going to be that same shape box. It's just going to be at a different size, a different scale. And 'twas ever thus. So that's a little peek behind the curtain in terms of my own personal work and where I'm at with all of that stuff. So, you're going to come to the retreat, or you're going to come to coaching or whatever, you're going to be in a box. You're going to be in that box. And as we learn to break free from that box, all of a sudden, our way of being, our way of seeing the people, that heart at peace, all of that stuff becomes more accessible to us. So, so that you can see kind of how these all tie into each other. This idea of obstacle versus human being, this idea of a heart at peace or heart at war, this idea of like the rationalization and limitation and rigidity that we bring to the relationship. You see, all those things are really tied to each other. And then if you really continue with the concepts of the anatomy of peace, get to start to talk about how do we help a person change, which is so relevant to parenting, but also like, let's be honest, there's a big part of being married to someone that's kind of wishing they would grow up or develop this new skill or quit doing this or stop doing that or start doing this other thing, right? How do we get people to change? Well, when we see them as an obstacle, we're just trying to force our will on them. I mean, we do it all the time. Pick up that backpack you left on the ground. Stop kicking your shoes across the floor. We're just kind of like trying to like relate to that object like it's a lump of stone, and we have our like sculptor's tools and we're just going to chip at it and force it and into the shape that we want it to be, which does not work. Any parent will tell you it does not work. Any spouse will tell you that it doesn't work, and it foments more conflict, right? So this is where, when I was reading the book for the first time, this is where I was like, oh, I got to do a workshop about this. This is a big deal. Was when I got to the part about what they call in the anatomy of peace, the pyramid of influence. It's literally, how do we, instead of trying to change someone, how do we create an environment that invites change, that maximizes the odds that this person can grow? We create a circumstance that promotes and encourages and makes more likely the growth of the person that we're in relationship with. And so instead of looking at it as like, how do I win this conflict, or how do I resolve this conflict even, we just stop looking at it as conflict and instead basically say, how can I show up to this moment, to this connection in a way that allows both of us to evolve? And that's what resolves conflict. So we start to think about, how do we actually influence people? Instead of focusing on fixing the other person, we start thinking about our own way of being toward them. Then we can start thinking about, how do we communicate with them? Then we can start thinking about how we set boundaries with them. Then we can start thinking about, how do we maybe teach them if they're interested in that, and sort of direct them and stuff like that. And when you think about the approach that most people take to parenting, that last little tippity top of the pyramid that I just mentioned, which is giving direction, is basically the entire flippin' pyramid for most parents. And what we can learn just from looking at that one image from the anatomy of peace was, oh my gosh, we need to flip this entire situation on its head. Directed and corrective parenting, or directive and corrective connection, because it doesn't have to be about parenting at all, should be the tiniest sliver of the pie chart of all of the ways that we are in connection with people. The bulk of it needs to be our own way of being, and then our own way of communicating, and then our own way of setting boundaries, and then very, very last, direction and correction. Holy mackerel. It can be very mind-blowing to look at things this way and to realize, like, whew, okay, so I'm looking at everyone like an obstacle. I'm trying to control them. My pyramid is completely lopsided and upside down. La, 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 whoa. So now you could see why this would be such a powerful tool to bring to a retreat about connection, why it can be so magical to shift all of these things, and why it's really great to have a retreat around this instead of just read the book. Because how does it feel? Like I just said, it can feel confronting to realize, like, I'm treating everyone like an obstacle, or I'm trying to control everybody, or I've got this all upside down and lopsided in my head about how I'm approaching my relationships. That is a really hard thing to realize. And most of the time when we really, absorb that, there's some support that's needed around that, and some time and some spaciousness. It's not going to be something that's going to happen in an hour, which is, if you watch the Words That Work workshop, I mentioned like 2 things from the anatomy of peace in that whole workshop, Because if we really went down the rabbit hole, that would turn into like a 10-hour workshop. So, so think about this in terms of the retreat. The anatomy of peace proposes that, meaningful change requires people to evolve first. Meaningful conflict resolution, meaningful evolution in a relationship. It all requires for us to evolve first. So focusing on healthy interactions with ourselves, healthy relationships with ourselves, and then healthy tools for interacting with others rather than just enforcing rules or discipline or, trying to like assert our will on other people. The retreat is a space to do exactly that inner work in community, in spaciousness, in relaxation, this sort of oh, what was I about to say? Rhythm. That's the word I'm looking for. That rhythm between ingesting new information and digesting, and then ingesting and then digesting. We give ourselves this kind of space to like go in that rhythmic way through that process without any rush and without any pressure. So, if there's conflict in your life, or if there's if you even just realize like I just want to have more of that heart. I want to bring that heart forward more in my interactions with people, which that's where I'm at personally right now. I don't have a lot of conflict in my life these days, but I do realize a lack of heart that I'm bringing to certain situations in my life. This is so powerful. And I really encourage you to think about whether the retreat might be the right place for you to sort of foster that in yourself. If there's feuds or quarrels, or if you're just wanting to bring that heart center a little bit forward, I mean, the anatomy of peace in one way will confront you by saying you are partially responsible for that. And the second thing that the retreat will do is say, and that's okay, and let me hold you while you figure that out. So the retreat is your chance to step out of that cycle and into genuine connection, which is the theme for the whole year. So think of one relationship or one connection in your life that feels stuck. Ask yourself, am I seeing that person as a full human being or as an obstacle or a problem? What if you brought a heart of peace to that connection? What is needed for you to access that heart of peace? And what if shifting your way of being as that foundational layer of that pyramid of influence, what if shifting your way of being was all that was needed to revolutionize that connection? And if you're feeling drawn to the retreat, if you know that this is ready for you, it's right for you, now is the time. Do not hesitate. We are getting close to crunch time on locking in people, locking in for sure and securing those dates, making sure that the retreat is a go. That all happens here in this beginning part of the summer. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So stop sitting on the fence, pull the trigger, reply to the email, send me a text, click on the link. You know the drill. You know how to get in touch with me. I am so here for you. I can't wait to talk to you more about the retreat, about the concepts from the Anatomy of Peace, and to see you on my doorstep in October. And maybe even in this lovely, amazing room that I am sitting in right now is just so pretty, picturesque. I've always loved this room, but seeing it on camera, because I've never recorded in here before, I'm like, oh, wow, this is like a really nice backdrop. I might have to record some more stuff in this space. It's really nice. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call. And let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.